Question 1. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in work order completion times and a rise in unplanned downtime for critical assets over the past quarter. As a functional analyst for IBM Maximo Asset Management V7, 6, which approach would best address these observed trends to optimize process efficiency? Option A. Implement a blanket system-wide configuration change to accelerate work order approval workflows without specific analysis of current approval steps. Option B. Immediately increase the number of technicians assigned to critical asset maintenance to expedite task completion and reduce backlog. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the entire work order lifecycle, from initiation to closure, analyzing data points such as planning, scheduling, execution, spare parts availability, and technician feedback to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Option D. Focus solely on improving the reporting of downtime events to ensure all instances are captured, assuming this will naturally lead to better performance. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the entire work order lifecycle, from initiation to closure, analyzing data points such as planning, scheduling, execution, spare parts availability, and technician feedback to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where observed performance deviates from expected outcomes, necessitating a thorough investigation into the underlying processes. The professional challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the performance dip and implementing an effective corrective action plan that aligns with operational efficiency and regulatory compliance without introducing new risks or inefficiencies. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial symptoms and fundamental process flaws. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically investigates the entire asset lifecycle and associated workflows within IBM Maximo. This aligns with the principles of process optimization, which advocate for a holistic view to identify bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and deviations from best practices. By focusing on data-driven analysis of work order completion times, spare parts usage, and technician feedback, it directly addresses potential issues within the maintenance execution and resource management processes. This methodical approach ensures that any proposed changes are based on evidence and are likely to yield sustainable improvements, thereby upholding operational integrity and potentially regulatory adherence by ensuring assets are maintained to required standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing technician availability without investigating the root cause of delays is professionally unacceptable. This fails to address the underlying process issues, such as inefficient work order prioritization, inadequate spare parts availability, or poor planning, which are likely contributing to the observed performance metrics. This superficial fix could lead to increased costs without resolving the core problem, potentially masking deeper systemic issues and leading to continued underperformance or even asset degradation, which could have regulatory implications if it impacts safety or environmental standards. Another incorrect approach that involves immediate, unverified system configuration changes without a thorough understanding of the impact on existing workflows is also professionally unacceptable. This risks introducing new errors, disrupting established processes, and potentially violating data integrity or security protocols within IBM Maximo. Such actions are reactive and lack the strategic foresight required for effective process optimization, potentially leading to further performance degradation and compliance issues. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the problem clearly using objective performance data. 2. Formulate hypotheses about potential root causes across relevant processes. 3. Gather evidence through data analysis, system logs, and stakeholder interviews. 4. Prioritize hypotheses based on likelihood and potential impact. 5. Design and implement targeted interventions based on the most probable root causes. 6. Monitor the impact of interventions and iterate as necessary. This systematic approach ensures that solutions are evidence-based, efficient, and aligned with organizational objectives and any applicable regulatory requirements. Question 2. Regulatory review indicates that IBM Maximo Asset Management V7 6 implementations must maintain data integrity and auditability. A business unit requests a new reporting capability that cannot be directly achieved through standard Maximo reporting tools or configuration without significant workarounds. as a functional analyst, which approach best aligns with these regulatory expectations and professional best practices for system management. Option A. Immediately develop a custom report using external tools, bypassing standard Maximo reporting mechanisms to quickly deliver the requested functionality. Option B. Investigate if the reporting requirement can be met through standard Maximo configuration by exploring advanced reporting features, custom views, or data export capabilities, and if not, collaborate with the technical team to assess the feasibility and impact of a custom solution, ensuring thorough documentation and testing. Option C. Inform the business unit that the request cannot be fulfilled due to limitations in standard Maximo reporting, and suggest they adapt their processes to existing capabilities. Option D. Proceed with a workaround using existing standard reports, even if it significantly compromises the accuracy and completeness of the data presented, to meet the immediate request. The correct answer is B. Investigate if the reporting requirement can be met through standard Maximo configuration by exploring advanced reporting features, custom views, or data export capabilities. And if not, collaborate with the technical team to assess the feasibility and impact of a custom solution, ensuring thorough documentation and testing. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the functional analyst must balance the immediate business need for a new feature with the potential long-term implications of deviating from established configuration, best practices within IBM Maximo V7. 6. The core of the challenge lies in understanding the regulatory framework governing system configuration and data integrity, which, for the purpose of this exam, is assumed to be aligned with general principles of good governance and auditability within enterprise software implementations. The analyst must exercise careful judgment to avoid introducing technical debt or security vulnerabilities that could later lead to compliance issues or operational inefficiencies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing configuration and its impact before proposing a solution. This aligns with the principles of responsible system development and maintenance, ensuring that any changes are well documented, tested, and aligned with the overall system architecture. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining system integrity and audit trails. By involving the technical team and seeking their expertise on the implications of customization versus configuration, the analyst demonstrates a commitment to robust solutions that are maintainable and compliant with potential future audits. This proactive engagement prevents the introduction of undocumented or poorly understood changes that could violate data integrity or security standards. An incorrect approach that suggests immediate customization without proper investigation fails to consider the potential for unintended consequences. This could lead to a breach of data integrity if the customization bypasses standard validation rules, or security vulnerabilities if not implemented with appropriate controls. Such an approach would be ethically questionable as it prioritizes speed over diligence, potentially exposing the organization to risks that could be considered regulatory noncompliance in a broader sense of responsible data management. Another incorrect approach, which involves ignoring the business request due to perceived complexity, represents a failure to meet professional obligations. While caution is necessary, outright dismissal without exploring viable solutions demonstrates a lack of problem-solving initiative and could lead to missed business opportunities or dissatisfaction, indirectly impacting the organization's operational efficiency, which can have regulatory implications in certain industries. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, fully understand the business requirement. Second, assess the feasibility of meeting the requirement using standard Maximo configuration options, consulting documentation and subject matter experts. Third, if configuration is insufficient, evaluate the impact and necessity of customization, involving the technical team to assess risks, development effort, and long-term maintenance. Fourth, document all proposed solutions, their justifications, and potential impacts. Finally, obtain appropriate approvals before proceeding with any implementation, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that the current configuration of IBM Maximo Asset Management V7 6 lacks a comprehensive and automated audit trail for critical asset data modifications, posing a significant risk to regulatory compliance. As a functional analyst, Which of the following approaches best addresses this deficiency while adhering to regulatory expectations for data integrity and auditability? Option A. Rely on users to manually document all changes to critical asset data in a separate spreadsheet, with the expectation that this documentation will be periodically reviewed. Option B. Implement a custom solution within Maximo that automatically logs all changes to critical asset fields, including the user, timestamp, and the specific data modified, ensuring an immutable and auditable history. Option C. Configure Maximo to send email notifications to a designated compliance officer whenever a critical asset record is modified, assuming this notification serves as sufficient audit evidence. Option D. Advise the business to implement stricter access controls, limiting who can make changes to critical asset data, and consider the audit trail requirements secondary to operational access. The correct answer is B. Implement a custom solution within Maximo that automatically logs all changes to critical asset fields, including the user, timestamp, and the specific data modified, ensuring an immutable and auditable history. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data integrity and audit trails within IBM Maximo. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing solutions that not only meet functional requirements, but also satisfy the stringent demands of regulatory frameworks governing asset management and data handling. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any configuration or process change does not inadvertently compromise the system's ability to provide accurate, auditable records, which are critical for compliance and decision-making. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integrity of the audit trail, a fundamental requirement for regulatory compliance. By configuring Maximo to automatically log all changes to critical asset data, including who made the change, when, and what was changed, the system maintains a robust and verifiable history. This directly aligns with regulatory expectations for accountability and transparency in asset management, ensuring that any discrepancies or issues can be traced back to their source. This proactive stance on data integrity is essential for demonstrating compliance during audits and for maintaining trust in the asset data. An incorrect approach that involves manual logging of changes is professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and ethical failures. It introduces a high risk of human error, omissions, and potential manipulation, thereby undermining the integrity of the audit trail. Regulators expect automated and immutable logging mechanisms. Failing to implement such a system can lead to non-compliance, fines, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, relying solely on user memory or informal communication for tracking changes, is even more egregious. This completely bypasses any auditable record, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance or investigate issues effectively. It represents a severe ethical lapse in data stewardship and a direct violation of principles of good governance and regulatory adherence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape, a detailed assessment of the functional requirements, and a comprehensive evaluation of Maximo's capabilities. When faced with a need to ensure data integrity and auditability, professionals should first consult the specific regulations applicable to their industry and jurisdiction. They should then explore the built-in functionalities of IBM Maximo that support audit trails and data logging. If standard configurations are insufficient, they should consider custom development or integration with other compliance tools, always prioritizing solutions that provide automated, immutable, and comprehensive logging. A risk-based approach, focusing on the criticality of the data being managed, is also essential. Question 4. The assessment process reveals a recurring pattern of incorrect data entries within the work order tracking application, specifically related to the classification of asset failures and the assignment of labor hours. Users are frequently selecting the wrong failure codes and inaccurately logging their time spent on tasks. This is impacting the accuracy of asset performance reporting and maintenance cost analysis. Option A. Focus on updating the asset failure code hierarchy and labor reporting categories within the system's administrative settings, assuming the issue lies solely with the system's structure rather than user understanding or training. Option B. Immediately implement a mandatory, comprehensive retraining program for all users of the work order application, covering all aspects of the module, without first analyzing the specific nature of the data entry errors. Option C. Conduct a detailed review of existing work order tracking data to identify specific trends in incorrect entries. Cross-reference these with user roles and the current training materials provided for the work order tracking module, and then propose targeted training sessions or system configuration adjustments based on these findings. Option D. Reconfigure the work order tracking application by adding more mandatory fields and complex validation rules to prevent incorrect entries, without assessing user comprehension or providing additional guidance. Correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed review of existing work order tracking data to identify specific trends in incorrect entries. Cross-reference these with user roles and the current training materials provided for the work order tracking module, and then propose targeted training sessions or system configuration adjustments based on these findings. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in IBM Maximo Asset Management v7. 6 implementations, ensuring data integrity and user adoption through effective training and system configuration. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the functional analyst to balance technical system capabilities with the practical needs and understanding of end users. A failure to do so can lead to inaccurate data, inefficient workflows, and ultimately, a lack of trust in the Maximo system. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause of the issue and propose a solution that is both technically sound and user-friendly. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven investigation before proposing solutions. By analyzing the existing data, identifying patterns of incorrect entries, and then correlating these with user roles and training materials, the analyst can pinpoint specific areas of misunderstanding or system misconfiguration. This systematic approach ensures that the proposed solution addresses the actual problem, rather than a symptom. It aligns with professional ethics by promoting accuracy, efficiency, and user competence, which are foundational to effective asset management and compliance with any relevant operational guidelines or internal policies that mandate accurate record keeping. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reconfiguring the system without understanding the user's perspective fails to address the root cause. This could lead to a technically correct configuration that is still difficult for users to understand or operate, perpetuating the data entry issues. This approach is professionally unacceptable as it wastes resources and fails to achieve the desired outcome of improved data quality and user proficiency. It also risks creating new, unforeseen problems due to a lack of holistic understanding. Another incorrect approach that involves simply providing more generic training without identifying specific knowledge gaps is also professionally unacceptable. This is inefficient and ineffective, as users may not receive training on the exact areas where they are struggling. It demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and a failure to tailor solutions to specific needs, which is a hallmark of professional competence. This approach can lead to user frustration and a perception that the system is overly complex or poorly designed, hindering adoption. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured problem-solving methodology. First, clearly define the problem and its impact. Second, gather data and evidence to understand the scope and potential causes. Third, analyze the data to identify root causes, considering both technical and human factors. Fourth, develop and evaluate potential solutions, considering feasibility, effectiveness, and user impact. Fifth, implement the chosen solution and monitor its effectiveness, making adjustments as necessary. This iterative and analytical process ensures that solutions are robust, sustainable, and aligned with organizational goals. Question 5. Implementation of a new critical asset tracking module in IBM Maximo Asset Management v7. 6. For the maintenance department is nearing its scheduled go-live date. The business unit lead expresses extreme urgency, citing an impending regulatory audit that requires the new tracking capabilities. They request the immediate deployment of the module, even though the final phase of user acceptance testing, UAT, has not been fully completed due to resource constraints in the business unit. As the functional analyst, what is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Immediately deploy the new module to meet the business unit's urgent request, assuming the core functionality is stable and any minor issues can be addressed post-deployment. Option B. Proceed with the deployment of the new module, but instruct the business unit to perform their own informal testing during the audit to identify any immediate issues. Option C. Advocate for the completion of the remaining UAT and formal sign-off before proceeding with the go-live, while exploring options for expedited testing or a phased rollout if possible, and clearly communicating the risks of proceeding without full validation. Option D. Inform the business unit lead that the regulatory audit cannot be accommodated by the current deployment schedule and advise them to proceed with their existing processes for the audit. The correct answer is C. Advocate for the completion of the remaining UAT and formal sign-off before proceeding with the go-live, while exploring options for expedited testing or a phased rollout if possible, and clearly communicating the risks of proceeding without full validation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. Balancing the need for rapid deployment with the imperative to adhere to established data governance and change management protocols. The professional challenge lies in managing stakeholder expectations, particularly when a critical business unit demands immediate access to a new functionality that has not yet undergone the full validation and testing cycle. This requires careful negotiation and a clear understanding of the potential risks associated with bypassing standard procedures. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes system integrity, data accuracy, and compliance with organizational policies. By advocating for the completion of the established testing and validation phases, the functional analyst upholds the principles of responsible system implementation. This ensures that the new functionality is robust, reliable, and meets all defined requirements before being released to end users. This aligns with the ethical obligation to deliver quality solutions and avoid introducing potential disruptions or data corruption. Furthermore, adhering to documented change management processes provides an audit trail and ensures accountability, which are critical in regulated environments. An incorrect approach that bypasses the testing and validation phases would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It would violate established change control procedures, potentially leading to the introduction of defects into the production environment. This could result in operational disruptions, inaccurate asset data, and a loss of trust in the system. From a regulatory perspective, failing to follow documented processes can lead to non-compliance with internal audit requirements and potentially external regulations if the system supports critical business functions. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a willingness to compromise system quality for expediency, which can have far-reaching negative consequences for the organization and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately deploying the functionality without proper user acceptance testing, UAT, also carries risks. While it might seem like a faster path, it bypasses a crucial step where end users confirm the functionality meets their business needs. This can lead to user dissatisfaction, rework, and a perception that the system is not aligned with operational realities. Ethically, it fails to adequately involve the end users in the deployment process, potentially leading to a solution that is technically functional but practically unusable. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Clearly understanding the business impact and urgency of the request. 2. Communicating the risks associated with deviating from established protocols to all relevant stakeholders, including management and the requesting business unit. 3. Exploring options for expedited testing or phased deployment if feasible, without compromising core quality assurance. 4. Documenting all discussions, decisions, and any agreed-upon deviations from standard procedures. 5. Escalating the decision to the appropriate level of management if a consensus cannot be reached or if the risks are deemed too high. 6. Prioritizing the long-term stability and integrity of the Maximo system and the data it manages. Question 6. The control framework reveals a proposal to enhance data capture for asset maintenance history within IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. By adding several new mandatory fields to the work order tracking application. This change is intended to improve the granularity of maintenance performed, thereby supporting more detailed failure analysis. However, initial feedback from the maintenance team suggests these new fields will significantly increase the time required to log a work order, potentially impacting their ability to respond to urgent repair requests. As the functional analyst, which approach best balances the need for detailed data with operational efficiency and system usability? Option A. Conduct a pilot program with a subset of users and a revised set of mandatory fields, gathering feedback on usability and data quality before a full rollout, while also exploring options for automated data capture where possible. Option B. Proceed with implementing the new mandatory fields but make them optional, relying on user discretion to enter the additional information when time permits. Option C. Implement the new mandatory fields immediately as proposed, as detailed data is crucial for advanced analytics and regulatory compliance, and instruct users to adapt their workflows. Option D. Reject the proposed changes outright, citing the maintenance team's concerns about increased logging time, and maintain the current data entry requirements to avoid disrupting operational efficiency. The correct answer is C. Implement the new mandatory fields immediately as proposed, as detailed data is crucial for advanced analytics and regulatory compliance, and instruct users to adapt their workflows. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in asset management, balancing the need for comprehensive data capture with the practicalities of user adoption and system performance. In the context of IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. A functional analyst must evaluate proposed changes to data entry requirements, considering their impact on both operational efficiency and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying solutions that are not only technically feasible, but also align with best practices for data governance and user experience, while adhering to any implicit or explicit regulatory expectations for asset data accuracy and completeness. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven evaluation of the proposed change. This involves understanding the business need, assessing the impact on existing processes and users, and considering the long-term implications for data integrity and reporting. By engaging stakeholders and conducting a pilot, the analyst ensures that the proposed solution is practical, effective, and meets the intended objectives without introducing undue burden or compromising data quality. This aligns with the principle of responsible system implementation and continuous improvement, which are foundational to effective asset management and implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that demand accurate record-keeping. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on technical implementation without user impact assessment fails to acknowledge the human element crucial for system success. This can lead to poor user adoption, data inaccuracies, and ultimately, a failure to achieve the desired business outcomes. From a regulatory perspective, this could be seen as a failure to implement controls that ensure data reliability, potentially leading to non-compliance if accurate asset data is a requirement. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings over long-term data integrity risks creating technical debt and compromising the value derived from the asset management system. This short-sightedness can lead to significant remediation costs and reputational damage if data inaccuracies result in operational failures or regulatory penalties. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the best long-term interest of the organization. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal preference rather than a structured evaluation process undermines the credibility of the analysis and the proposed solution. This can lead to suboptimal decisions that do not address the root cause of the issue or may introduce new problems. Professionally, it demonstrates a lack of rigor and adherence to established best practices for system analysis and change management. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem or proposed change and its objectives. 2. Identifying and engaging all relevant stakeholders. 3. Conducting a thorough impact assessment, considering technical, operational, and user aspects. 4. Evaluating potential solutions against defined criteria, including feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and alignment with best practices and regulatory requirements. 5. Recommending a course of action with clear justification and a plan for implementation and monitoring. Question 7. System analysis indicates that an organization operating under specific UK regulatory frameworks governing the maintenance and reporting of critical infrastructure assets needs to ensure their IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. Implementation accurately reflects compliance. The functional analyst has identified that certain asset types require specific inspection dates and associated documentation to be logged and readily accessible for regulatory audits. Which of the following approaches best ensures that the system configuration directly supports this regulatory requirement? Option A. Configure custom fields within the asset record to capture the inspection dates and upload associated documentation, and then create a custom report that filters assets based on these inspection dates and document availability. Option B. Implement a new custom object in Maximo to store inspection details, but do not link it directly to the asset record to avoid system complexity. Option C. Rely on the existing last service date field in Maximo to represent inspection dates, assuming it is sufficient for regulatory purposes. Option D. Update the asset description field with the inspection dates and a brief note about the documentation's location. The correct answer is A. Configure custom fields within the asset record to capture the inspection dates and upload associated documentation, and then create a custom report that filters assets based on these inspection dates and document availability. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where regulatory compliance intersects with system configuration and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for accurate, auditable records with the practicalities of system updates and the potential for data drift. Ensuring that the IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 system accurately reflects the organization's adherence to specific regulatory requirements, such as those pertaining to asset lifecycle management or environmental reporting, is paramount. Misinterpreting or misapplying regulatory guidance within the system can lead to non-compliance, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The functional analyst must possess a deep understanding of both the system's capabilities and the nuances of the applicable regulatory framework to make informed decisions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the specific regulatory requirements and a detailed mapping of these requirements to the relevant fields, workflows, and reporting capabilities within IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6. This includes understanding how data is captured, stored, and reported, and ensuring that the system's configuration directly supports the audit trails and data points mandated by the regulations. For example, if a regulation requires tracking specific maintenance activities for safety-critical assets, the system must be configured to capture these activities with the necessary detail and to generate reports that can be readily presented to auditors. This approach ensures that the system is not just a repository of asset data, but a tool for demonstrating compliance, thereby representing best professional practice by proactively addressing regulatory obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to assume that the default configuration of IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 inherently satisfies all regulatory requirements without specific validation. This fails to acknowledge that regulations are dynamic and often require tailored system configurations or customizations to ensure full compliance. The regulatory or ethical failure here is negligence and a lack of due diligence, potentially leading to noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on user requests or perceived system improvements without a direct link to a regulatory mandate. While system usability is important, prioritizing it over regulatory adherence can create gaps in compliance reporting and auditability. The failure is in misprioritizing system functionality over legal and ethical obligations, risking noncompliance. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on external, non-validated interpretations of regulations, rather than consulting the official regulatory documentation and seeking expert advice when necessary. This can lead to misinterpretations and incorrect system configurations, resulting in a false sense of compliance. The regulatory failure is in operating on potentially inaccurate information, undermining the integrity of the compliance process. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape relevant to their organization and assets. This involves identifying specific regulations, understanding their implications for asset management, and then evaluating how IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 can be configured to meet these requirements. A critical step is to engage with regulatory experts or legal counsel when there is ambiguity. The decision-making process should prioritize data integrity, auditability, and demonstrable compliance. Regular reviews and updates to system configurations in response to changes in regulations or business processes are also essential components of professional practice. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal that the IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 Sixth system is collecting an excessive amount of granular data for certain asset types, impacting system performance and user adoption. The functional analyst is tasked with optimizing the data collection strategy. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for asset data management within a regulated environment? Option A. Mandate the collection of every conceivable data point for all asset types from the outset to ensure comprehensive historical records, regardless of immediate operational necessity or system performance impact. Option B. Rely exclusively on ad hoc user requests for new data fields without a formal review process to ensure all perceived information needs are met promptly. Option C. Focus solely on capturing historical data for existing assets without considering future operational requirements or potential changes in regulatory reporting standards. Option D. Implement a phased data collection strategy, starting with essential fields required for core operations and regulatory compliance, followed by iterative refinement based on user feedback and evolving business needs. Correct answer is D. Implement a phased data collection strategy, starting with essential fields required for core operations and regulatory compliance, followed by iterative refinement based on user feedback and evolving business needs. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, balancing the need for comprehensive data capture with the practicalities of user adoption and system performance. The core of the challenge lies in identifying the optimal level of detail for asset data without creating an overly burdensome or inefficient system. Overcollection of data can lead to performance degradation, increased training requirements, and a higher risk of data entry errors, while undercollection can hinder effective analysis, maintenance planning, and regulatory compliance. The professional analyst must navigate these competing demands, ensuring that data collection aligns with business objectives and regulatory requirements without compromising usability. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a data-driven, phased implementation of data requirements. This method ensures that critical data needed for immediate operational and regulatory needs is captured first. Subsequent phases allow for refinement based on actual usage, user feedback, and evolving business requirements. This iterative process minimizes initial disruption, allows for continuous improvement, and ensures that data collection remains relevant and valuable. It aligns with principles of efficient system design and user-centric development, which are implicitly supported by good governance and operational efficiency standards, often found in regulatory frameworks governing asset management. An incorrect approach that mandates the collection of every conceivable data point from the outset fails to consider the practical implications of system load and user capacity. This can lead to significant performance issues, user frustration, and ultimately, poor data quality due to rushed or incomplete entries. It also represents a failure in effective project management and change control, potentially violating implicit requirements for efficient resource utilization and system maintainability. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on user requests for data fields without a structured validation process is also professionally unsound. This can lead to a proliferation of redundant, inconsistent, or irrelevant data fields, further degrading system performance and data integrity. It neglects the analyst's responsibility to ensure data standards and alignment with strategic objectives, potentially leading to non-compliance with data governance policies. A third incorrect approach that focuses only on historical data collection without considering future needs or regulatory changes is short-sighted. Asset management is a forward-looking discipline. Failing to anticipate future reporting requirements or operational changes can lead to costly system modifications and data gaps later on. This demonstrates a lack of strategic thinking and can result in non-compliance with evolving regulatory landscapes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the business objectives, regulatory mandates, and operational constraints. This includes engaging stakeholders to identify critical data needs, prioritizing data fields based on their impact and necessity, and adopting an iterative approach to data collection and refinement. A robust change management process, including user training and feedback mechanisms, is essential for successful implementation and ongoing optimization. Question 9. Investigation of a critical failure in the IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 system that has halted the scheduling of preventative maintenance for a fleet of vehicles. The system is reporting intermittent data corruption errors within the PM module, preventing the generation of work orders. The operations team is demanding an immediate fix to avoid significant operational downtime and potential contractual penalties. As the functional analyst, you need to determine the most appropriate course of action to address this issue while adhering to best practices and any applicable regulatory guidelines for asset management. Option A. Directly modify the database tables associated with the PM module to correct the corrupted data and restart the PM scheduling service, documenting the changes retrospectively. Option B. Immediately implement a temporary workaround by manually creating work orders for the next 48 hours and initiate a deep dive into the PM module's database logs to identify the root cause of the data corruption. Option C. Bypass the standard change control process and apply a recently released hotfix from IBM that addresses general data corruption issues without performing extensive testing in a non-production environment. Option D. Escalate the issue to the IBM support team and await their diagnosis and resolution, while advising the operations team to halt all PM scheduling until the system is confirmed to be stable. The correct answer is B. Immediately implement a temporary workaround by manually creating work orders for the next 48 hours and initiate a deep dive into the PM module's database logs to identify the root cause of the data corruption. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, where a critical system failure impacts operational continuity. The functional analyst must balance immediate problem resolution with long-term system integrity and compliance. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to shortcuts that violate established procedures or regulatory requirements, making careful judgment essential. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause without compromising data integrity or security, especially when dealing with a system as integral as Maximo. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that adheres to established incident management and change control processes. This ensures that any remediation actions are documented, tested, and approved, minimizing the risk of further disruption or non-compliance. Following the documented procedures for incident resolution, including root cause analysis and impact assessment, aligns with best practices for maintaining system stability and operational efficiency. This methodical approach also supports auditability and compliance with any relevant industry regulations or internal policies governing system changes and data handling. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that bypasses formal change control and directly implements a fix without proper testing or documentation, is professionally unacceptable. This creates significant regulatory and ethical risks. It violates principles of good governance and can lead to data corruption, security vulnerabilities, or unintended system behavior, all of which could have severe compliance implications. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for established controls designed to protect the integrity of critical asset data and operational processes. Another incorrect approach would be to solely focus on restoring the immediate functionality without investigating the underlying cause. This reactive measure fails to address the root problem, increasing the likelihood of recurrence and potentially masking deeper systemic issues. From a regulatory standpoint, this could be seen as negligence, especially if the failure relates to safety-critical assets or compliance-driven maintenance schedules. It also undermines the principle of continuous improvement inherent in effective asset management. Finally, an approach that involves making undocumented, ad hoc modifications to the database or system configuration is highly problematic. This directly compromises data integrity and audit trails, making it impossible to accurately track system changes or diagnose future issues. It is a direct violation of data governance principles and can lead to significant compliance failures, particularly in regulated industries where data accuracy and traceability are paramount. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured problem-solving framework that prioritizes adherence to established procedures. This includes 1. Incident identification and logging. Clearly define and log the incident. 2. Initial assessment and triage. Determine the immediate impact and urgency. 3. Root cause analysis. Systematically investigate to find the underlying cause. 4. Solution development and testing. Design and test potential solutions in a controlled environment. 5. Change management. Obtain necessary approvals and follow change control procedures for implementation. 6. Implementation and verification. Deploy the fix and confirm resolution. 7. Post-incident review. Document lessons learned and update procedures. This process ensures accountability, minimizes risk, and promotes system stability and compliance. Question 10. What factors determine the most appropriate course of action when a client requests a significant modification to the core asset hierarchy structure late in the IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 implementation project? Option A. Immediately implementing the requested change to satisfy the client's immediate demand and maintain project momentum. Option B. Rejecting the request outright due to the late stage of the project, citing potential schedule and budget overruns. Option C. Prioritizing the client's request above all other project considerations to ensure client satisfaction, regardless of system implications. Option D. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment, evaluating technical feasibility, operational benefits, and potential risks, followed by a formal change control process. Correct answer is D. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment, evaluating technical feasibility, operational benefits, and potential risks, followed by a formal change control process. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6, where a client requests a significant customization to the core asset hierarchy structure late in the project lifecycle. The challenge lies in balancing the client's perceived immediate need with the potential for downstream impacts on system stability, upgradability, and adherence to best practices. The late stage of the request amplifies the risk of scope creep, budget overruns, and schedule delays. Furthermore, the functional analyst must navigate the client's understanding of Maximo's capabilities versus their desired operational workflow, ensuring the solution is both technically feasible and operationally beneficial, without compromising the integrity of the system. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment and a structured change management process. This aligns with professional best practices for IT project management and system implementation. Specifically, it requires the functional analyst to 1. Document the requested change comprehensively, including the business justification and desired outcomes. 2. Analyze the technical implications across all affected modules and integrations. This includes assessing the impact on reporting, workflows, security, and future upgrade paths. 3. Evaluate the operational benefits versus the costs, time, budget, risk. 4. Propose alternative solutions that might achieve similar business objectives with less system disruption, such as leveraging existing Maximo functionalities or configuring related objects. 5. Present a clear recommendation to the client, outlining the pros and cons of the proposed change, including any potential risks and mitigation strategies. 6. If the change is approved, ensure it is formally incorporated into the project scope, budget, and schedule through a documented change request process. This methodical approach ensures that decisions are data-driven, transparent, and aligned with project governance, minimizing unforeseen issues and maximizing the value delivered to the client. It upholds professional responsibility by prioritizing system integrity and long-term maintainability. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the requested change without a formal impact assessment and change control process is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. One incorrect approach would be to immediately agree to the client's request and proceed with the customization without proper analysis. This demonstrates a lack of professional due diligence and a failure to adhere to standard project management methodologies. It risks introducing instability into the Maximo system, potentially leading to data corruption, performance degradation, and difficulties in future upgrades. Ethically, it fails to act in the client's best long-term interest by not exploring all viable options and highlighting potential risks. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the request outright without understanding the underlying business need. While the request may be problematic, a complete refusal without investigation can damage client relationships and miss opportunities to find innovative solutions. This approach lacks the professional courtesy and problem-solving orientation expected of a functional analyst. It also fails to explore if a less intrusive configuration could meet the business requirement. A third incorrect approach would be to implement the change in a quick and dirty manner to meet an immediate deadline, without proper testing or documentation. This is a direct violation of professional standards for system implementation, leading to technical debt, increased maintenance costs, and a higher likelihood of future failures. It also creates an environment where undocumented customizations become the norm, making future system management extremely difficult. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should adopt a structured decision-making process that prioritizes a balanced approach between client needs and system integrity. This involves 1. Active listening and requirements gathering. Fully understand the client's business problem, not just their proposed solution. 2. Impact analysis. Systematically evaluate the technical, operational, and financial implications of any proposed change. 3. Risk assessment and mitigation. Identify potential risks and develop strategies to mitigate them. 4. Solution exploration. Consider multiple options, including configuration, customization, and process adjustments. 5. Clear communication and recommendation. Present findings and recommendations transparently to stakeholders. 6. Change control. Adhere to formal change management processes for any approved modification. This framework ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and contribute to the successful and sustainable implementation of IBM Maximo Asset Management. Question 11. When evaluating the configuration of a new workflow for critical equipment maintenance approvals within IBM Maximo Asset Management V7, 6, which approach best ensures compliance with implicit regulatory expectations for auditability and control? Option A. Relying on informal email confirmations from supervisors for each stage of the approval process, with minimal system logging. Option B. Implementing a multi-stage approval process with defined roles, mandatory electronic sign-offs, and comprehensive audit logging for all workflow transitions and actions. Option C. Developing a technically efficient workflow that prioritizes speed of execution over formal approval steps, assuming user discretion. Option D. Automating the workflow to bypass all manual approvals, assuming the maintenance team is fully trained and trustworthy. The correct answer is B. Implementing a multi-stage approval process with defined roles, mandatory electronic sign-offs, and comprehensive audit logging for all workflow transitions and actions. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo implementations, balancing the desire for rapid deployment with the need for robust, auditable processes. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen approach to configuring workflows for critical asset maintenance tasks not only meets immediate business needs, but also adheres to established best practices for data integrity, auditability, and future scalability within the Maximo framework. The regulatory framework for this exam, C2010-555 IBM Maximo Asset Management V7, 6 Functional Analyst, implicitly guides towards solutions that promote transparency and control, essential for any asset management system, especially in regulated industries. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, iterative methodology that involves thorough documentation and stakeholder validation. This ensures that the workflow configuration is not only technically sound, but also aligns with business requirements and regulatory expectations for asset maintenance. By defining clear approval steps, incorporating audit trails, and ensuring proper role-based access, this method upholds the principles of good governance and compliance, which are paramount in asset management. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of maintaining accurate and traceable records for asset lifecycle management. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal approval steps and relies solely on informal communication for workflow changes introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. It undermines the audit trail, making it difficult to ascertain who authorized specific maintenance actions or changes to critical processes. This lack of formal documentation and accountability can lead to non-compliance with industry-specific regulations that mandate traceable maintenance records. Furthermore, it creates a fragile system prone to errors and inconsistencies, potentially impacting asset safety and operational efficiency. Another incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on technical feasibility without considering user adoption and change management is also professionally deficient. While technically sound, a workflow that is not understood or accepted by end users will likely be circumvented or misused, leading to data inaccuracies and operational breakdowns. This failure to consider the human element can indirectly lead to regulatory noncompliance if it results in deviations from mandated maintenance procedures or inaccurate reporting. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of proposed solutions, against established best practices for IBM Maximo V7. 6. This includes understanding the business and regulatory context of the asset management process, identifying key stakeholders and their requirements, designing solutions that incorporate robust audit trails, role-based security, and clear approval workflows, validating the design through user acceptance testing, and ensuring comprehensive documentation throughout the implementation lifecycle. Prioritizing transparency, accountability, and adherence to established governance principles is crucial for successful and compliant Maximo deployments. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a streamlined, less data-intensive configuration for a new asset class in IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6 would result in a 15% reduction in initial implementation costs and a 10% decrease in ongoing data entry time for the operations team. However, this streamlined approach omits certain detailed maintenance history fields that are currently mandated by industry best practices for asset lifecycle management and could become subject to future regulatory reporting requirements. Considering the professional responsibilities of a functional analyst, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Propose a custom development solution that mimics the streamlined data entry but flags assets with missing detailed history for manual follow-up by a dedicated data governance team. Option B. Advocate for the streamlined configuration, emphasizing the immediate cost savings and reduced operational burden, and propose a post-implementation review to assess the need for additional data fields if regulatory changes occur. Option C. Suggest a phased implementation where the streamlined configuration is deployed first, with a clear roadmap and budget allocated for adding the detailed maintenance history fields within the first year of operation. Option D. Recommend implementing the full, detailed configuration as per industry best practices, even if it incurs higher initial costs and requires more extensive data entry, to ensure comprehensive data capture for current operational needs and future regulatory compliance. The correct answer is B. Advocate for the streamlined configuration, emphasizing the immediate cost savings and reduced operational burden, and propose a post-implementation review to assess the need for additional data fields if regulatory changes occur. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management implementations, where the perceived immediate cost savings of a proposed solution clash with the long-term strategic benefits and regulatory compliance requirements. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate financial pressures with the need for robust, compliant, and sustainable asset management practices. A functional analyst must navigate these competing interests, ensuring that decisions are not solely driven by short-term financial gains, but also by adherence to established industry standards and potential regulatory mandates relevant to asset management in the specified jurisdiction. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive evaluation that includes not only direct financial costs and benefits, but also indirect benefits such as improved regulatory compliance, reduced risk of noncompliance penalties, enhanced operational efficiency, and extended asset lifespan. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that the proposed solution contributes to the overall strategic objectives of the organization, including its commitment to responsible asset stewardship and regulatory adherence. In the context of IBM Maximo V7. 6. This means leveraging the system's capabilities to achieve these broader goals, rather than simply implementing a feature for immediate cost reduction. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost reduction without considering the broader implications would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a solution that is non-compliant with future regulatory changes, increases operational risk, or fails to deliver the full potential value of the Maximo system. For instance, bypassing a required data capture for a specific asset type to save on initial data entry effort, even if it appears cost-effective in the short term, could lead to significant regulatory noncompliance issues if that data is later required for reporting or auditing purposes. This failure to anticipate and integrate regulatory requirements into the solution design is a critical ethical and professional lapse. Another incorrect approach might be to select a less robust or feature-limited configuration to reduce upfront licensing or implementation costs, thereby compromising the system's ability to meet future operational or compliance needs. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to act in the best long-term interest of the organization. professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the business objectives, regulatory landscape, and the capabilities of the chosen system, IBM Maximo V7. 6. This involves engaging with all relevant stakeholders, including operations, finance, compliance, and IT, to gather a holistic view of requirements and constraints. The process should then involve a detailed assessment of potential solutions against these criteria, with a strong emphasis on long-term value, risk mitigation, and compliance. When faced with conflicting priorities, professionals should advocate for solutions that uphold regulatory standards and strategic goals, even if they require a greater initial investment, by clearly articulating the long-term risks and costs associated with short-sighted decisions. Question 13. Quality control measures reveal ongoing user dissatisfaction with the efficiency of IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. In managing critical asset maintenance schedules, users report delays in work order generation and difficulty in tracking asset downtime accurately, impacting operational readiness. As the functional analyst, which of the following actions best addresses this situation while adhering to professional best practices for system evaluation? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive review of Maximo's current configuration, user training materials, and data entry protocols, cross-referencing findings with established asset management best practices and any relevant operational guidelines to identify specific areas for optimization or corrective action. Option B. Immediately propose a significant upgrade to the latest version of Maximo or recommend extensive custom development to address the reported user frustrations, assuming the current system is fundamentally inadequate. Option C. Advise management to disregard the user feedback as subjective and focus solely on system uptime metrics, assuming that if the system is technically operational, it is functioning efficiently. Option D. Conduct a series of user workshops to gather more anecdotal evidence of system slowness, and then implement a series of minor, quick-fix adjustments to the user interface without a deeper analysis of the underlying data or configuration. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive review of Maximo's current configuration, user training materials, and data entry protocols, cross-referencing findings with established asset management best practices and any relevant operational guidelines to identify specific areas for optimization or corrective action. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where the effectiveness of a critical system, IBM Maximo Asset Management V7. 6. Is being questioned due to perceived inefficiencies. The professional challenge lies in objectively evaluating the system's performance against established best practices and regulatory compliance without succumbing to anecdotal evidence or premature conclusions. A functional analyst must balance user feedback with system capabilities and adherence to operational standards. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven evaluation of Maximo's configuration and utilization against industry, best practices for asset lifecycle management, and relevant operational guidelines. This includes assessing if the system is configured to support mandated maintenance schedules, track asset criticality accurately, and generate reports that align with any applicable operational or safety regulations. This approach represents best professional practice because it is objective, verifiable, and directly addresses the root cause of perceived inefficiencies. It ensures that any proposed changes are based on evidence and contribute to improved operational performance and compliance, rather than simply reacting to user sentiment. Adherence to these practices is crucial for maintaining system integrity and demonstrating value to stakeholders. An incorrect approach would be to immediately recommend a system overhaul or significant customization based solely on user complaints, without a thorough diagnostic. This fails to acknowledge that user dissatisfaction can stem from inadequate training, poor data entry, or misinterpretation of system functionality, rather than inherent system flaws. Such an approach risks significant financial and operational disruption, potentially leading to non-compliance if the underlying issues are not addressed. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss user feedback entirely, assuming the system is functioning optimally without investigation. This neglects the importance of user experience and can lead to a disconnect between system capabilities and operational needs, potentially masking critical issues that could impact safety or regulatory adherence. The professional decision-making process should involve 1. gathering specific, quantifiable examples of perceived inefficiencies from users. 2. Reviewing Maximo's current configuration and usage logs against documented best practices for asset management and any relevant operational guidelines. 3. Conducting targeted system audits and user interviews to validate feedback and identify root causes. 4. Developing a phased approach to remediation, prioritizing solutions that offer the greatest impact on efficiency and compliance, and clearly communicating findings and recommendations to stakeholders. Question 14. The control framework reveals a proposal to streamline the asset inspection workflow in IBM Maximo v7. 6. By automating the assignment of inspection tasks based on a simplified geographical proximity algorithm, bypassing the existing multi-factor risk-based assignment logic. This change is intended to reduce the time taken for task allocation. What is the most appropriate functional analyst approach to this proposed process optimization? Option A. Immediately implement the simplified algorithm to realize the intended efficiency gains, assuming that any potential negative impacts will be minor and can be addressed reactively. Option B. Proceed with the simplified algorithm, but only after confirming that the change does not alter the user interface, as this is the primary concern for end-user adoption. Option C. Implement the simplified algorithm and rely on existing system logs to identify any issues, without performing a proactive risk assessment or validation of the new assignment logic. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact analysis to understand how the simplified algorithm affects data integrity, audit trails, and compliance with any industry-specific regulatory requirements for inspection frequency and criticality, and then propose a phased rollout with rigorous testing. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact analysis to understand how the simplified algorithm affects data integrity, audit trails, and compliance with any industry-specific regulatory requirements for inspection frequency and criticality, and then propose a phased rollout with rigorous testing. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, where a seemingly minor process change, intended to improve efficiency, could inadvertently introduce risks that impact compliance and operational integrity. The professional challenge lies in balancing the drive for optimization with the imperative to maintain adherence to established regulatory frameworks and internal controls. A functional analyst must possess a deep understanding of how process modifications in IBM Maximo can ripple through the system, affecting data accuracy, audit trails, and ultimately, regulatory reporting. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment and validation process before implementing any change. This aligns with the principles of good governance and robust internal controls, which are often implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory bodies overseeing asset-intensive industries. By thoroughly evaluating the impact on data integrity, auditability, and compliance with relevant standards, e.g., those related to safety, environmental protection, or financial reporting, depending on the industry context, the analyst ensures that the optimization does not compromise the organization's ability to meet its obligations. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of regulatory breaches, financial penalties, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control and validation processes would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach disregards the established procedures designed to safeguard against unintended consequences. For instance, failing to document the change or assess its impact on audit trails could lead to an inability to demonstrate compliance during an audit, potentially resulting in sanctions. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the organization's responsibility to operate within legal and regulatory boundaries. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the perceived efficiency gains without considering downstream impacts on data quality or reporting, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a narrow view that prioritizes short-term gains over long-term operational stability and compliance, which can lead to inaccurate asset data, flawed decision-making, and non-compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the proposed change and its intended benefits. 2. Identify all potentially affected processes, data points, and system functionalities within IBM Maximo. 3. Assess the potential risks associated with the change, including impacts on data integrity, auditability, security, and regulatory compliance. 4. Consult relevant documentation, including system configurations, standard operating procedures, and regulatory requirements. 5. Develop a comprehensive test plan to validate the change and its impact. 6. Obtain necessary approvals through the formal change management process. 7. Implement the change in a controlled manner, with thorough post-implementation monitoring and validation. 8. Document all steps and outcomes for audit and future reference. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates that critical asset inspection work orders are being generated and completed within the IBM Maximo Asset Management V7.6 system. However, the specific regulatory framework requires not only the completion of these inspections, but also the documentation of specific environmental readings taken during each inspection, which are not consistently captured in the standard inspection work order templates, which approach best aligns with ensuring regulatory compliance through the effective use of the monitoring system. Option A. Configure the inspection work order templates in IBM Maximo V7.6 to include mandatory fields for recording the required environmental readings, and implement validation rules to ensure these fields are populated before a work order can be marked as complete. Option B. Assume that the completion of the inspection work order is sufficient evidence of regulatory compliance, as the system indicates the task has been performed. Option C. Ignore the missing environmental readings in the system for now, as the primary focus is on the completion of the scheduled inspections themselves. Option D. Rely on separate, non-integrated spreadsheets maintained by individual inspectors to record the environmental readings, as this provides the necessary data. The correct answer is A. Configure the inspection work order templates in IBM Maximo V7.6 to include mandatory fields for recording the required environmental readings, and implement validation rules to ensure these fields are populated before a work order can be marked as complete. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because the IBM Maximo V7.6 system, while designed for asset management and maintenance, is being leveraged to infer compliance with regulatory requirements that it was not explicitly designed to enforce. The core difficulty lies in interpreting system data and configurations to definitively prove adherence to external regulations, which often have nuanced definitions and require specific audit trails beyond standard operational logs. The functional analyst must bridge the gap between system capabilities and regulatory mandates, ensuring that the system's output is a reliable indicator of compliance without overstating its direct enforcement role. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it acknowledges the indirect nature of Maximo's contribution to regulatory compliance. By focusing on configuring Maximo to capture data that * supports * regulatory reporting and auditing, and by ensuring that these configurations align with the * spirit * and * requirements * of the relevant regulations, in this case, implied to be related to asset integrity and operational safety within a regulated industry, though no specific UK/SISI regulation is cited as per instructions, the analyst is using the system as intended. This involves setting up work orders for inspections, tracking maintenance history, and ensuring that critical asset data is recorded accurately and accessibly. This method is ethically sound, as it avoids misrepresenting the system's capabilities and focuses on providing verifiable evidence. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the presence of certain data fields within Maximo without verifying their accuracy or context would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet regulatory requirements because regulations often demand not just the existence of data, but its accuracy, completeness, and the processes by which it was generated and validated. Another incorrect approach, which involves assuming Maximo automatically enforces all regulatory requirements through its standard features, is also a failure. This overlooks the need for specific configuration and potentially custom development to align with unique regulatory demands, leading to a false sense of security and potential noncompliance. A third incorrect approach, which is to ignore any system-generated alerts related to potential noncompliance, is a direct ethical and professional failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the system's warning signals and a lack of due diligence in ensuring operational integrity and regulatory adherence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, a detailed assessment of IBM Maximo V7. 6 is capabilities and limitations in relation to those regulations, and a clear strategy for configuring and utilizing the system to generate auditable evidence of compliance. This requires collaboration with compliance officers and subject matter experts to ensure that system configurations and data capture directly address regulatory expectations. The focus should always be on providing verifiable proof of adherence, rather than assuming compliance based on system presence alone. Question 16. Operational review demonstrates that a significant number of asset records in IBM Maximo V7. 6 are missing critical data fields required for environmental reporting compliance. These fields are not currently mandatory during asset creation or modification. What is the most effective approach to address this compliance gap and ensure future data integrity? Option A. Implement mandatory fields for the missing data in the asset application and configure workflow to ensure data is captured at the point of entry. Option B. Manually review and update all existing asset records with the missing information and rely on user diligence for future entries. Option C. Temporarily disable the validation rules for these fields to allow for faster data entry while a long-term solution is sought. Option D. Advise stakeholders to address the missing data only when a specific regulatory audit is scheduled. The correct answer is A. Implement mandatory fields for the missing data in the asset application and configure workflow to ensure data is captured at the point of entry. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where regulatory compliance intersects with operational efficiency. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for accurate and timely reporting to regulatory bodies with the practicalities of data collection and system configuration within IBM Maximo. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is not explicitly stated, but assuming a general framework for asset management compliance, the focus is on adhering to established standards for data integrity and reporting. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified compliance gap by leveraging Maximo's built-in functionalities for data validation and workflow automation. This ensures that data entered into the system is more likely to be accurate and complete, thereby meeting regulatory reporting requirements. It also promotes a proactive stance on compliance by embedding checks at the point of data entry, reducing the risk of future noncompliance. This aligns with the ethical obligation of a functional analyst to ensure the system supports organizational compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on manual data correction after the fact is professionally unacceptable. This represents a reactive rather than proactive strategy, increasing the risk of errors going undetected and leading to potential regulatory penalties. It also consumes valuable resources that could be better allocated to preventative measures. Ethically, it fails to uphold the duty of care to ensure the system's integrity for compliance purposes. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing validation rules to expedite data entry is also professionally unacceptable. This directly undermines the purpose of validation rules, which are often put in place to meet specific regulatory data requirements. It creates a significant risk of inaccurate or incomplete data being reported, leading to potential legal and financial repercussions. This approach demonstrates a disregard for established compliance protocols. A third incorrect approach that suggests ignoring the discrepancy until a formal audit is called is professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to proactively manage compliance risks. Waiting for an audit to address known issues can result in more significant remediation efforts and potential penalties for delayed action. It also suggests a passive approach to regulatory obligations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the regulatory requirements, an assessment of the current system's capabilities and limitations within IBM Maximo, and a risk-based approach to remediation. This involves prioritizing actions that have the greatest impact on compliance and operational efficiency, and advocating for system enhancements or process changes that promote ongoing adherence to regulations. It requires clear communication with stakeholders about identified risks and proposed solutions. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual fluctuation in the performance metrics of a critical pump within the water treatment facility. This fluctuation, while not yet exceeding predefined critical thresholds, has occurred intermittently over the past 24 hours. As the functional analyst, What is the most appropriate immediate next step to ensure operational continuity and compliance with environmental regulations? Option A. Initiate a diagnostic analysis of the pump's operational logs and sensor data to identify the root cause of the fluctuation and assess its potential impact on downstream processes. Option B. Log the fluctuation as a minor anomaly and continue monitoring the system without further immediate action, assuming it will self-resolve. Option C. Immediately schedule a full system shutdown of the water treatment facility to prevent any potential catastrophic failure of the pump. Option D. Dispatch a maintenance team to perform an unscheduled, full component replacement of the pump as a precautionary measure. The correct answer is A. Initiate a diagnostic analysis of the pump's operational logs and sensor data to identify the root cause of the fluctuation and assess its potential impact on downstream processes. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management where a system alert, while indicating a potential issue, requires careful interpretation to avoid unnecessary disruption and resource expenditure. The professional challenge lies in distinguishing between a genuine critical failure requiring immediate action and a transient anomaly that can be addressed through routine maintenance or further investigation. The regulatory framework for asset management, particularly concerning operational efficiency and compliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, mandates a structured and evidence-based approach to incident response. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic impact assessment before escalating or taking corrective action. This aligns with principles of responsible resource allocation and risk management. By first verifying the alert's validity and understanding its potential consequences on critical assets and operations, the analyst ensures that interventions are proportionate and effective. This methodical process minimizes the risk of false positives leading to costly downtime or unnecessary maintenance, thereby upholding operational integrity and adherence to performance standards. An incorrect approach that immediately initiates a full system shutdown without verification fails to adhere to the principle of proportionality. This could lead to significant operational disruption and financial loss, potentially violating contractual obligations or internal performance metrics. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence and sound judgment. Another incorrect approach, that of ignoring the alert due to a perceived low probability of failure, disregards the proactive nature of asset management and the potential for cascading failures. This could lead to a more severe incident later, resulting in non-compliance with safety or operational regulations and a breach of professional duty to maintain asset reliability. A third incorrect approach, which involves immediately replacing a component based solely on the alert without diagnostic testing, is wasteful and inefficient, failing to meet the professional standard of cost-effectiveness and evidence-based decision-making. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the alert's context, followed by a rapid but thorough assessment of its potential impact on critical business functions and assets. This involves consulting asset criticality matrices, historical data, and diagnostic tools. If the impact is deemed significant, a phased response, starting with less disruptive measures, should be implemented. If the impact is minimal or uncertain, further investigation and monitoring are warranted before committing to significant actions. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and aligned with both operational objectives and regulatory expectations. Question 18. Benchmark analysis indicates that a proposed upgrade to IBM Maximo Asset Management v7.6 for a critical infrastructure client may introduce significant operational efficiencies. However, the upgrade involves substantial changes to the core data model and integration points with legacy systems. Which of the following approaches best addresses the inherent risks associated with this upgrade, ensuring both functional integrity and regulatory compliance? Option A. Prioritize the upgrade based on the potential for cost savings, deferring any detailed risk analysis until after the system is live and operational. Option B. Implement the upgrade in a phased manner, focusing solely on the technical migration of data and application components without a formal assessment of operational or regulatory risks. Option C. Proceed with the upgrade immediately, relying on the vendor's assurance of stability and focusing on post-implementation user training to address any unforeseen issues. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential impacts on data integrity, system availability, and regulatory reporting, followed by the development and testing of mitigation strategies before proceeding with the upgrade. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the upgrade immediately, relying on the vendor's assurance of stability and focusing on post-implementation user training to address any unforeseen issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in asset management, where a critical system upgrade, while offering potential efficiency gains, also introduces new and unquantified risks. Professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for technological advancement with the imperative to maintain operational stability and comply with relevant regulatory frameworks, particularly concerning data integrity and system availability. A functional analyst must not only understand the technical implications, but also the business and regulatory context. The correct approach involves a structured risk assessment that prioritizes identifying, analyzing, and mitigating potential negative impacts before implementation. This aligns with best professional practices in IT governance and asset management, which emphasize a proactive and evidence-based approach to change management, specifically within the context of IBM Maximo v7. 6. In its typical operational environments, regulatory compliance often hinges on maintaining accurate asset data, ensuring system uptime for critical operations, e.g., maintenance scheduling, regulatory inspections, and protecting sensitive information. A thorough risk assessment directly supports these objectives by identifying potential disruptions, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities that could lead to non-compliance or operational failure. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal risk assessment, such as proceeding with the upgrade based solely on perceived benefits or anecdotal evidence, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a failure to adequately protect the organization's assets and operational integrity. Such an approach could lead to unforeseen system failures, data loss, or security breaches, all of which could result in regulatory penalties, financial losses, and reputational damage. Furthermore, it violates the ethical responsibility of a functional analyst to act in the best interest of the organization and its stakeholders by ensuring robust and reliable systems. Another incorrect approach, focusing only on the technical feasibility of the upgrade without considering the business impact or potential operational disruptions, is also professionally unacceptable. This narrow focus ignores the broader implications of system changes on users, processes, and regulatory adherence. It fails to acknowledge that a system's value is derived from its ability to support business objectives and comply with external mandates. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Understand the proposed change and its objectives. 2. Identify all potential stakeholders and their concerns. 3. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment including identifying threats, vulnerabilities, likelihood, and impact. 4. Develop mitigation strategies for identified risks. 5. Evaluate the residual risk after mitigation. 6. Obtain necessary approvals based on the risk assessment findings. 7. Plan and execute the change with appropriate controls and monitoring. 8. Review and document the outcome. This structured process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and compliance is maintained. Question 19. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of regulatory scrutiny regarding asset lifecycle data management within the IBM Maximo Asset Management v7.6 system. As the functional analyst, you are responsible for configuring the system to meet UK regulatory requirements and SISI guidelines. Which of the following actions best ensures compliance while maintaining system integrity? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of the most requested functional enhancements by the business units, assuming that standard Maximo features will largely satisfy regulatory needs. Option B. Proceed with the configuration based on your interpretation of general best practices for asset management, without seeking explicit validation against the specific UK regulations and SISI guidelines. Option C. Defer the regulatory compliance aspects until a later phase, focusing initially on achieving core operational functionality within the IBM Maximo v7.6 system. Option D. Implement configurations that directly address the identified regulatory gaps, consulting with the compliance department for validation, and documenting all changes and their rationale, in relation to the specific UK regulations and CISI guidelines. The correct answer is D. Implement configurations that directly address the identified regulatory gaps, consulting with the compliance department for validation, and documenting all changes and their rationale in relation to the specific UK regulations and CISI guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the IBM Maximo V7-6 functional analyst is tasked with ensuring regulatory compliance within a critical asset management system. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant regulatory framework, which in this context is assumed to be governed by UK regulations and CISI guidelines, to the functional configuration of Maximo. The analyst must balance system functionality with strict adherence to these guidelines, ensuring that data integrity, audit trails, and reporting capabilities meet legal and industry standards. Misinterpretation or oversight can lead to significant compliance breaches, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and direct application of the specified regulatory framework, UK regulations, and CISI guidelines to the Maximo configuration. This involves actively seeking clarification from compliance officers or legal counsel when ambiguities arise, and documenting all decisions and their justifications. This proactive and informed approach ensures that the system's design and implementation are not only functional, but also demonstrably compliant, thereby mitigating risks and upholding ethical responsibilities. An incorrect approach that involves prioritizing immediate system functionality over documented regulatory requirements is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal and ethical obligations imposed by UK regulations and CISI guidelines. Such an approach risks creating a system that, while appearing efficient in the short term, is fundamentally non-compliant, leading to potential retrospective remediation costs and penalties. Another incorrect approach, which is to assume that standard Maximo configurations inherently meet all regulatory needs without specific validation against the UK framework, is also professionally flawed. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and an over-reliance on default settings, which may not be sufficient or appropriate for the specific regulatory landscape. It bypasses the critical step of verifying compliance, thereby exposing the organization to significant risk. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify and understand the applicable regulatory framework, UK regulations and CISI guidelines in this case. Second, assess how each functional requirement within IBM Maximo V7-6 maps to these regulations. Third, consult with subject matter experts, including compliance officers and legal counsel, to resolve any ambiguities or interpretative challenges. Fourth, document all decisions, justifications, and configurations meticulously. Finally, implement and test the system to ensure it meets both functional and regulatory requirements, with a plan for ongoing monitoring and updates. Question 20. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a new feature in IBM Maximo Asset Management V7-6, designed to enhance predictive maintenance scheduling through advanced analytics, is being considered for deployment. This feature integrates with external sensor data feeds and modifies the existing work order generation logic. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure a successful and compliant implementation? Option A. Rely solely on the vendor's documentation for the new feature, assuming it covers all potential integration points and operational impacts within the specific organizational context. Option B. Proceed with the deployment of the new feature immediately, assuming it will seamlessly integrate with existing configurations and that users will adapt to any minor workflow adjustments. Option C. Implement the new feature in a limited scope, focusing only on the direct users of the predictive maintenance module and address any broader system issues as they arise. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that identifies all affected Maximo modules, workflows, integrations, customizations, and user roles, and engage with key stakeholders to understand potential operational changes and data implications. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that identifies all affected Maximo modules, workflows, integrations, customizations, and user roles, and engage with key stakeholders to understand potential operational changes and data implications. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IBM Maximo v7. 6 implementations where a new feature, while offering potential benefits, also introduces changes that could impact existing workflows and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for system enhancement with the imperative to maintain operational stability and compliance. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to identify potential risks before deployment, ensuring that the organization can proactively mitigate them. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive evaluation of the proposed change. This includes identifying all affected modules, workflows, integrations, and user roles within Maximo. It requires engaging with stakeholders across different departments to understand their current processes and how the new feature might alter them. Furthermore, it necessitates a review of existing data structures, customizations, and reporting to determine compatibility and potential data migration or transformation needs. This methodical process ensures that all potential consequences are considered, allowing for informed decision-making regarding the implementation, necessary training, and resource allocation. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a controlled and risk-aware deployment, minimizing disruption, and ensuring the system continues to meet business objectives and regulatory requirements. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the implementation without a detailed impact assessment. This could manifest in several ways. One failure is to assume the new feature is entirely backward compatible and will integrate seamlessly without affecting existing configurations. This overlooks the potential for unintended consequences, such as data corruption, broken workflows, or performance degradation, which could lead to operational failures and potential breaches of service-level agreements or internal policies. Another failure is to only consider the direct impact on the immediate users of the new feature, neglecting the ripple effects on other departments or integrated systems. This siloed thinking can lead to unforeseen issues in areas that were not initially considered, creating a reactive rather than proactive problem-solving environment. Ethically, failing to conduct a proper impact assessment can be seen as a dereliction of professional duty, as it exposes the organization to unnecessary risks and potential financial or reputational damage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to change management. This begins with a clear understanding of the proposed change and its intended benefits. Subsequently, a comprehensive impact assessment should be initiated, involving cross-functional teams and subject matter experts. This assessment should document all potential impacts, including technical, operational, and business process changes. Based on the findings, a risk mitigation plan should be developed, outlining steps to address identified risks. Finally, a decision on whether to proceed with the change, defer it, or reject it should be made based on the comprehensive analysis and risk assessment, ensuring alignment with organizational goals and regulatory compliance.